Have you ever been so sure about something, only to find out you were totally wrong? It happens to all of us, right? It's this timeless human problem. How do you tell what's real from what's fake when your own eyes, your own gut can lead you astray? Well, today we're diving into a powerful tool for that exact struggle, all through the incredible lens of the 13th century poet Rumi. Okay, so before we can really get the solution, we have to sit with the problem for a minute. And Rumi, well, he sets the stage perfectly, showing us just how easily we get fooled by things that look good on the surface. So, Rumi tells this story. Picture this: a group of starving travelers stumbles upon a baby elephant. Now, a wise man warns them, don't eat it. But they're desperate, right? It looks like a gift from the heavens, like their salvation. But that relief doesn't last long, because the mother elephant, she finds them. What looked like a delicious life-saving gift was actually their doom.
And that's the core of it, isn't it? This ancient story points to a problem that feels very, very modern. If our own senses, our own desires can trick us so badly, if the very thing that looks like the answer is really a trap, how are we supposed to navigate the world with any kind of confidence?
This is where Rumi makes a turn. He's showing us the problem, our own flawed perception. And now he introduces the tool that's designed to fix it. A really simple but incredibly deep prayer for clarity.
So here it is. And I want you to notice it's a two-part request. It's not just asking to see the truth, but for the strength to actually follow it. And it's not just about recognizing what's false, but getting the help to avoid it. You see? It's a prayer for both perception and action.
And this is the prayer in its original transliterated Arabic. Just hearing it like this connects us all the way back through the centuries to the linguistic and spiritual soil that Rumi himself drew from.
But how does a 13th century poet take this simple prayer and use it to unlock such a deep understanding of our inner world? See, he doesn't just quote it. He builds this entire philosophical case around it. It's brilliant.
In his masterpiece, the Masnavi, Rumi places this prayer at a super critical moment. He uses it like an anchor, arguing that, look, without divine help, we're basically lost. The stories and metaphors he wraps around it aren't just pretty words. There is evidence, his proof for why we need this prayer so badly.
So Rumi suggests there are these specific veils or barriers that totally cloud our judgment. And this prayer, in his view, is designed to help us pull them back one by one. Let's break down these 4 steps.
First up, social pressure. Rumi points to the example of the Prophet Muhammad's own uncle, Abu Talib. He was intellectually convinced. He knew his nephew's message was true. But he couldn't bring himself to say it out loud because he was terrified of what his tribe would think, of losing his status. He saw the truth, but he couldn't follow it. The prayer asks for the strength to overcome exactly that kind of fear.
Second, our own inner chaos. Rumi talks about the flux and reflux of our will. You know that feeling? One moment you're all in, totally committed, and the next you're just full of doubt. It's like having 10 different voices in your head screaming what to do. This prayer is basically a plea for one single, guiding principle to cut through all that noise. Third, the actual limits of our senses. Rumi uses this incredible metaphor. A gnat might think the sun is just a tiny, warm speck in the sky because its eyes are literally too small to see the sun for what it is. He argues we're just like that gnat. Our senses are stuck in this tiny little circle, and this prayer is a request for God to expand that circle, to let us see reality as it truly is.
And this brings us to that 4th veil, and it's one of my favorites. Rumi argues that truth and falsehood have a kind of spiritual signature, a smell. Remember the mother elephant? She could smell her baby on the breath of the travelers. Well, this prayer asks for a spiritual nose so we can detect the stench of a bad idea or a harmful path long before we're ever tempted to bite.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that while Rumi is an absolute master at explaining this prayer's power, he didn't write it, not at all. He was drawing from a tradition that was already ancient even in his time.
Yeah, if we trace its lineage, we see this prayer goes all the way back to the 7th century. That's over 600 years before Rumi. It's tied to the very first generation of Muslims and was known as a reported supplication that followed the spirit of prophetic teachings long before Rumi picked it up for his amazing poetic and philosophical work.
Specifically, tradition points to Abu Bakr, the closest companion of the Prophet Muhammad and the very first leader of the Muslim community after he passed. So this isn't just a poet's idea, it's a supplication that's rooted in one of the most foundational figures in all of Islamic history. So we've traced the poetry back to Rumi and the history all the way back to Abu Bakr. But what's the ultimate lesson here? What's the core principle that makes this simple prayer so powerful even today?
This analogy just gets right to the heart of it. A doctor can know everything there is to know about lung cancer, but all that knowledge on its own won't protect them if they keep smoking. It's such a clear reminder that simply knowing something is true is a whole different world from actually living by that truth.
And this really gets to the central argument. See, knowledge lets us describe a problem. We can analyze it, we can talk about it, write books about it, but only practice, only discipline and action can actually protect us from it. Description is not protection. The prayer is aiming for integrity, that amazing place where what you know and what you do finally become the same thing.
And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. This isn't about getting some kind of secret information from the heavens. It's a tool for discipline. It's a humble, consistent request for the guidance to not only see things clearly, but to live according to that clear sight, to finally close that huge gap between knowing what's good and actually doing it.
So, I'll leave you with this question. Rumi's travelers were tempted by a young elephant that looked like food. In our world, a world just overflowing with information, misinformation, and constant distraction, what are the delicious falsehoods that are tempting us? And what would it really mean to pray for the sight to see them for what they are and the strength to turn away?